I'll have the bacon cheeseburger.
Got it. That'll be right up.
Oh, man. I wish I would have gotten that. You know what to do. Audible. Chicken wing, chicken wing, chicken wing. 42, 42.
I got you, Rocco.
There's nothing better than getting what you want, and Sweet Caroline's Kitchen and Cocktails has everything you want. Great burgers, sandwiches, wings, and more. Call an audible on your next meal out. Sweet Caroline's Kitchen and Cocktails, Ames.
We recommend listening to the CW Pod with a glass of Steeple Ridge Bourbon. Grown, distilled, well-rested, and bottled in Erling, Iowa. Now from the Channel Seed Studios, this is the CW Pod, fueled by Steeple Ridge.
Well, if you're watching or listening later in the day, I hope you have a bottle of Steeple Ridge Bourbon with you. It is about noon on a Tuesday, so I'm going to refrain today, but really excited. Guy who, over in Steeple Ridge country, J.D. Scholten, you're right over there. How far are you from Erling? Where they make?
We're a couple hours, but I've definitely been there. And
Okay.
When I ran for Congress, the RV swung by there too to see the whole. It's
Nice.
awesome what they do.
It is.
Yeah, love the story.
It's really like a grain to glass. Even like Pat told me, like the water that they put in that whiskey is from their farm there. JD, been a fan of yours for a long time. I think you're a really cool guy ever since I saw that van riding around, and wanted to get you on the show because you've been all over the sports news, and it's been really as Matty Van Winkle is one of your biggest fans, and he's gonna join us. He's a baseball nut too, so we asked Matty to come on today, and I'm even wearing a Braves hat for you. Because we're going to be talking about your baseball career, and I've just got back, Matt, from Atlanta. Mm-hmm. So I've seen, probably similar to you, since you moved to the Midwest, I've seen the Braves play, I think, in 6 or 7 different ballparks, except their own. Because I've gone to them in, Minnesota, Kansas City, Wrigley, saw them play in Fenway once, St. Louis, but I've never been to Atlanta. Went and did that with the kids, and it was really a weird, totally meaningless game. Half the team is injured. You walk into your team's ballpark, and like that, I couldn't talk. Like the hairs on the back of my neck. They're doing the pregame thing with Tom Glavine and the Crime Dogs up there, and I was just like, I was awestruck by it. Really good experience.
It is fun to see your team in opposing ballparks, just because you get to see there's always fans from other cities, other states that come, especially to Atlanta, like where you got to see your team in the home state. But it's fun, like for me as a Giants fan, I got to go up and watch the game at Target Field, and you kind of just like see other Giants fans and other team, fans from your team, and you kind of just like, hey, go Giants. But it is tough when the other, 90% of the fans there are rooting against your team. So for you to get to see your team in the home stadium, that's awesome.
Well, and that's the thing too. I was trying to explain this to my 9-year-old, and even my wife didn't have great perspective on it. But JD, you're a big baseball guy, and you're a little bit older than me, so you grew up with TBS and all that stuff too. But the Braves are such a national brand. It's like the whole South roots for them, and it's hard to explain. My mom is from the South. And this was back before Florida really had teams, the Marlins and the Rays, where everybody rooted for the Braves. And you see that every time I go and watch them somewhere where there's just 30% of the stadium's Atlanta fans. And it was really it's weird. And I just love their organization, how it's like, right now, like the whole team's injured and they're still in a race to get into the playoffs. They're an organization like that I'm actually proud to be a fan of. That sounds a little bit hokey, but were you when you grew up, were you Sioux City? Sioux City East, right? Yeah,
I was born in Ames.
Okay. I didn't know that. Okay.
My dad was actually assistant baseball coach at grad assistant at Iowa State when I was born.
Oh.
Yeah, so I got a little bit of Cyclone in me.
Okay, just a smidge of Cyclone. That's all right. It's better than none. Who was your team growing up, man?
Twins. Kirby Puckett, Herbie, Kent
You're
Herbeck.
killing me here.
But you won't find a bigger Brad Radke fan. So that's how big a pitching nerd I am. like when Twins had one year where I think they won like 64 games and Radke had 20 wins. And to me, that's one of the most underrated pitching performances in MLB history.
Great pull.
Yeah. So.
You say the word Kirby Puckett there, and that's like a cuss word around my house. 1990.
Yeah.
Oh,
91.
91. You're right.
Yeah.
Good pull. Good pull. Well, so listen, we've talked about what you're doing on our show, and it's incredible. I kind of wanted to give people. I think it's just really inspirational, more so than just even the baseball side of this. I love what you're doing, from the aspect of just chasing what makes you happy. And I feel like, and you probably know this more than any of us, like living and working in the political world, I just feel like we need more stories of that, like just people doing things that give them joy. And here you are at 44 years old, and we can kind of run it down, but you quit your job and you're riding buses around from town to town, and you're doing something physically that you probably shouldn't be able to do at your age. Where does the inspiration come from? Because it really, really is has been a touching story to all of us.
Yeah. So, I mean, so much of this is because I feel like an uneasiness about what happened last time I played professional baseball. And I always thought there was more, but it wasn't for a lack of effort. It wasn't for a lack of anything other than like, I just couldn't put it together. And so I went 6-7 years without touching a baseball. And then actually this past week, 5 years ago at the state fair, I was running for Congress, and my staff was kind of pushing me to do the miles per hour booth. And I hadn't touched a ball in 5 years or whatever. And if you hit above 80 miles an hour, you win the prize or whatever. I ended up winning it. And then that's when I was just like, oh, that's kind of fun.
Old man still got it, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I was sore after that. And then a year later, COVID hit. And so there was no state fair, but I had a goal once COVID hit. There was a Saturday night. I probably had a few too many Lonely Oaks, and went down a rabbit hole on YouTube of pitching mechanics. And I was just like, oh, if I did this, if I did that. And so the next day I'd buy a couple dozen balls and a net, just start throwing in my backyard with the goal that at the end of the summer, the state fair, but it didn't happen that year, I could hit 87 that year. And it took like 60 tries, but I finally did it, hit 87. And then that next summer, I lost my congressional race. That next summer, I want to spend more time with my parents, and they live up in the Twin Cities, and Minnesota has amazing town team baseball. And so and especially after you reach 40, you get grandfathered in on a couple different rules that kind of like will keep younger kids out. And so I got able to play up there, and I went 10-1 with like a 1.8 ERA. And since that time, just got better and better and better. And then last year I got to play in the Netherlands. And after I didn't really pitch that well over there, but I had a blast, and I made the team just wanted to get to a certain point. We got to that certain point, so they were thrilled with it. But I took that and just took into the off season and just continued to train, and body feels great. Mind feels great. And I just, got the opportunity, which I've been begging them for several years to just allow me to just one more try. And finally it just worked out.
It's like the reverse trend of like MLB pitchers where like they lose velocity as they get older. You're like the opposite of that. You're gaining velocity as you get older.
Well,
but like to your point,
I don't
like
have the 92 anymore, but
yeah, but I mean, like from going from, like you said, not touching a baseball for 6-7 years to going and throwing a 80-mile-plus-per-hour pitch at the state fair, that kind of gave you that spot in your mind, like I think I can improve on this. And for me, is like I pitched when I was in high school. The biggest thing for me is like core strength, right? Like as you get older, like focusing on your core really can improve everything about your body. Is that something that was a big thing for you, is improving like just your overall body strength? Yeah,
definitely. And so I think 2 years ago, I went pretty hard, and like during my first legislative session, so January to April in 2023, I was training with some minor leaguers, and I was doing too much. And that's when I realized, oh, I can't like deadlift what they do and do all that stuff. So it was it was good where I got a lot stronger, but then like if I did too much, then it put me back a week or two. This year, I was more focused, spending more time on the mound and a lot more. And I still do my regular lifting routine and everything, and a lot of core, but I do a lot more mobility and stretching and yoga stuff to combat that. But yeah, I mean, you look at like Bartolo Colon and all what he's done, and a lot of it is just stretching. You have your natural strength, you try to get a little bit more, and then you just mobility and stretching.
Well, if you guys want to know like the nuts and bolts of JD's baseball career, like going all the way back to when he pitched at Nebraska and all that stuff, Tommy Birch wrote a great piece in the Des Moines Register. I read that this morning when I was preparing for this. I think one of the fascinating baseball parts of this is there was a line in that story that Tommy wrote. I would encourage everybody to read it. Where it was either like an opposing player or he compared you to Greg Maddux, who's one of my heroes, obviously being a Braves fan. But Maddux, so I'm a Mike Leach disciple. Okay. Tell you a little bit about me, JD. Like Maddux was like kind of that mad scientist type of pitcher where you looked at him and he looks like your math teacher, right? Like he doesn't look like, he wasn't Pedro Martinez back in that day or I'm just thinking of the monsters, CC Sabathia, these 6'7" guy. Like Maddux was just this guy who was kind of dorky, wore glasses, but he had such command of, he would just mess with hitters, and what I'm fascinated by is almost the sports psychology story here and what we can take from it as humans is, because we're all getting older. It doesn't matter if you're 25 listening to this, you're going to keep getting older and you get more experienced and you get a better head on your shoulders. You hopefully learn from mistakes. Can you walk me through that aspect of this? Because you said you've lost velocity, but you're pitching the best you've ever pitched. How is that possible? And what are you doing to have this success mentally?
So back in like high school, and everything and into college and my early pro career, I was very raw. I mean, 6'6", grown into my body, got recruited more for basketball than I did for baseball, but I knew I had more upside for baseball. But the thing I always had was I had decent velocity in my ball moves. 6'6" kind of throws 3/4, and so I would get that. And that was my bread and butter. And then kind of I learned how to throw a slider, but it was kind of inconsistent. And so now, like, I don't throw 92 anymore with movement. What I throw a four seam that moves left to right at like 86 to 88, maybe. Then I have a two seamer that just sinks. And so those two are my bread and butter. Off of that, I have a cutter that keeps the fastball honest, and then a slider and a changeup. And for the most part, I can throw all those in any count. And so the thing that I really love that just I pitched tonight and I'm so excited about, and it's been in my mind since I fell asleep. Like as I fall asleep, I go visualize about like how I'm going to set up different hitters and the chess match of the game, because like we have a guy in our bullpen who usually comes after me who touches 98. Like, so to go from me to that is pretty extreme. But like I can get outs in this league because it's a chess match, and like, okay, I'm going to set this hitter up in the first inning. So when I need it in the third time I face him with a guy on third base and a 1-run game, I'm set up to pitch and get him out on my pitch. And so that to me is like the part that I'm just absolutely loving right now. And it's about execution. I mean, it's not any, I don't have a secret sauce or anything like that. It's just having a game plan, executing your game plan, and just being able to spot your fastball, change speeds, change locations, and get hitters to get themselves out.
Is that something, were you even capable of doing that in your 20s? Like thinking through
it was throw as hard as I can.
Yeah.
And it was just grunt and just throw hard and try to miss the middle.
It's why this, again, Maddie, you know me better than anyone, is it brings me back to Leach, because like Leach, the reason I love the guy so much is he would take average talent.
Yeah.
And he would just he would be unorthodox, and he would outthink the opponent and put them in situations that they weren't prepared for. And it wasn't it wasn't complicated. Everybody's like,
Right.
"Oh, his air raid off. It's so no." He had like 5 plays. Like, and it just reminds me of what you're doing now with these kids who are bigger, faster, stronger than you.
Yeah.
And the old professors, the old professor Scholten's he's going to pitch tonight and he's going to throw a 2-hitter. Like, I love it. It's an inspiring deal.
Well, I appreciate it. It's just crazy too, because like there's so much talent in our dugout, and yet here I'm 4-1 and one of the had the best winning percentage in the rotation right now. And it's just like it's surreal in a lot of different ways, but it's also like I put in the work. And so I think there was this notion after the first win and how crazy that was, that I just got off the couch and showed up. And by no means that was what
I didn't know you were going to keep playing. Like, we talked about it the day after, and I was like, "Oh, that's a cool story." And then like, "Oh, he's pitching again. Oh, wait a minute. He's right."
It started off with the guy who got hurt. He still wasn't ready for the next start. And so that's when I had a chance to go up to Fargo and pitch. And I went 6 innings, 1 run there, and got a 3-1 W up there. And so that's when they're like, "Oh, okay, let's ride this out a little bit." And so, but yeah, like, so take example for during this legislative session, how I ended up getting my cousin's kid goes to North Polk, and he needed he was wanting some help with his slider. And so we went to this training facility that is just you punch in the code and you have access to these mounds and these cages. And so I'm just like, oh, this is perfect for me, because during the legislative session I don't know my schedule, it's random. And so if I need to get a bullpen in, I've thrown at 6 a.m. I've thrown there at 10 p.m. at night to make sure I get my bullpen in that day or that week and everything. And so that ended up being just a great situation and allowed me to be prepared for the season far better than I have been in years past. So it's all these little things that kind of add up. But it's been a wild ride.
You guys had an interesting experience a couple weeks back on the bus. Chris was mentioning, you guys tour. I mean, you guys are traveling all over the Midwest, and it sounds like up to Fargo, but you guys were heading to, was it Illinois? When you guys had a fire, your bus caught fire. That must have been an interesting time.
So the night before, I pitched and got my 4th win, and it was the first time riding the bus with the boys. So I was pretty excited. I mean, like, these bus rides are grueling, but at the same time, like I haven't done this in so long, and so I was excited. In the other road trips, like up to Fargo, I had to deal with flood victims in my district and make sure they had the resources they needed. And so, like, I didn't go with the guys then. And so I drove up on my own. And then right after the All-Star break, we were down in Texas, and I was supposed to be at a conference out in DC. So I just reverted my flight down to there. So this was the first time hanging out with the guys. And it was fun until 3 a.m. when when we were I was asleep, and the bus pulls off, and our center fielder just in the most casual voice is like, "Hey, we got to get off the bus. There's smoke in the back." And I look back, and it was just smoky as can be. And I mean, my hat goes out to the Earlham Fire Department because the only thing we lost was the stuff up above, nothing down below. But like it could have easily just all went out. But they got there so fast. They got control of the fire. And luckily, we just had a few material items, and nobody got hurt or anything. But
one of the cool things that came out of that was that your hat, right, is being sent to Cooperstown, right?
Well, so that was Friday morning at 3 a.m. We get to Kane County, and the next day, I get the greatest email of my life. And it was in the American Association, the league that the Explorers play in. Their PR people have been phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And they connected with the Hall of Fame, and the Hall of Fame sent this email saying, "Hey, we want your game-worn hat from July 6th, the first game." And I'm just like, oh my God, yes. I didn't let them know where the hat was at the time, but we had just like, after the fire, we went up on bus and got a bunch of stuff, and I had 2 hats, one personal hat, one my game hat from the night before, because I didn't want it in my bag because it was all sweaty. And so my teammate just kind of got it and just chucked it in the ditch. And so so I knew exactly where the hat was. And so our GM drove to King County to make sure we were all okay that day once he heard about the fire. And then on his way back that Sunday, I would text him like, "Hey, are you going through Des Moines on your way home?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "By chance, could you check out?" And so I sent him my picture of what I had, where you could see the back of the bus, and there's a sign right there. And then I did a GPS and like did a little bit of area, and he found it right away. And yeah, they just got it yesterday, and so I have this document that said they have it. So I don't know.
Hall of Famer.
Yeah, so that's the joke. I was like, on baseballs, do I get to sign HOF with like an asterisk and just a hat?
Do you know what they're gonna do with it? Are they gonna display it somewhere, or is it just gonna be in the storage somewhere? Or what?
We don't know yet.
Oh.
Our owner might be more excited about this than me, and which I'm ecstatic about it. But he's like, "Oh, we'll fly out there. We'll do all this stuff." If there's an exhibit, I mean that would be just too crazy.
Well,
But,
this could be a movie. Honestly, I'm not kidding. Like what you're doing, like this state representative, 44 years old, quits his job, chases the dream. Like this is the type of stuff that I think this is why we talked about this on last week's show, why we like the Olympics so much, is because like, you know,
there's so many good stories.
Yeah. And it's, for the most part, it's like, oh, well, that person fell over in track. And then, you know, these countries might politically hate each other, but the athletes will go and pick each other up and be great sports. And like, we need more of this stuff. And that's one of the things we're trying to do here on this specific podcast. It's just tell really good stories. And I tell it, this could be Netflix. If you're paying attention, Maddie, we'll cut this up. I'm talking to you, Netflix. Get a hold of my guy JD here, because I think this could be. Reminds me of the Rookie. Who is that? You seen that one?
Oh yeah. And
you've seen all the
a lot of reference. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just it's been so surreal. But the cool thing for me is just like, my dad's driving down tonight, and my parents have been at most of the games. The other thing is, like, the American Association streams all the games live for free.
Oh,
and I think that's just
hit that up, Matt.
Yeah, it's just a good way to get the brand out there. I mean, it's what Major League Baseball should be doing, you know?
You don't think I haven't been watching JD's games, Chris? Come on, you don't know me.
Yeah, I do know you well enough. You're a baseball sicko. It's like Matt's one of my only friends I could say, like, yeah, I'm driving to Atlanta with kids to go to a Braves game. And Matt's one of the only people who wouldn't think that that's weird.
That's weird, yeah.
You do have that shirt on. So for those of you who are listening to the show and not watching on YouTube, JD's got a End MLB Blackouts shirt on, which we all can get behind. I'm sitting in it drives me nuts as a Braves fan, because I have to pay to watch the games. It's the only way I can watch my team. Matt's the same way. He's a Giants fan. Most insane thing to me is like so the Royals are my AL team. We're from a generation where you could have an AL and an NL team, and the Royals were an hour and a half from where I grew up, and then we cheered for the Braves. But like the Royals are having this great magical season, and I cannot watch them. It's impossible for me to watch, because I want to be invested in it, but I'm not. I feel like I don't even know these players. I'm in Atlanta. I'm in the outfield at the Braves frickin' hotel. My kids are swimming in the pool. I'm watching the game, and I just want to have the stream up on my phone that I pay for, and it's blacking me out. This was last Tuesday. I mean, it is so frickin' hard to follow the sport that you love. JD, where are we? Are we making any progress? Because this has been a talking point for like 10, 15 years. Where are we at on this?
So I had a bill 2 years ago, my first year there. Major League Baseball's commissioner office flew a couple people out to meet with me about it, and they said they're working on it. And I'm like, I'm appreciative that you guys are working on it, and they need to deal with this. Like, the Iowa legislature shouldn't be dealing with this. We got other stuff we can focus on. But at the same time, we're the number one state impacted by this. We have 6 different markets we cannot watch, and if they're all playing other teams and everyone's playing on a given night, that's 40% of games we cannot watch. And it especially when we have 3 minor league teams, and MLB cut us from 5 to 3. And all three of those, you can't follow these guys when they get to the bigs because we're blacked out of those games. And so it's just, to me, it's about growing the game. And the game's been so wonderful to me, has allowed me to see the world and do some amazing things. I just want to make sure that when our kids are of the age that they have an opportunity to fall in love with the game like we did. And like you mentioned, TBS. It was great coming home, watching WGN or TBS and getting to see those games. And now, like, I know on social media they'll show clips and things like that, but like you even think about the rise of Pitching Ninja and how wonderful his social media platforms are, but that's because MLB wasn't doing it, and he just filled a gap. And so I just, baseball's such a wonderful game for me that I just want to make sure we have all capacity we can do. So yeah, I'm trying to find a Republican to help get this, at least to get a subcommittee so we can talk about it a little bit more.
Democrats and Republicans, you can't agree on this. There's got to be a Republican who hates the MLB blackout rules. Come on.
They tell me they do, but I'm like, well, prove it.
I pay almost. I have the MLB TV app, so I can watch the Giants, and I pay what? It's almost $200 for the year, or something like that, to watch. And when the Giants travel, or when Chicago, the Cubs travel out to San Francisco, I can't watch the game.
It's insane,
right?
Unless I have DirecTV to get marquee.
JD, help me here, because I take everything back to media because that's what I know. What baseball has done with the TV thing, first of all, I'll give them credit. The in-game experience is better than I've ever seen. Sitting there, my wife couldn't believe that they had a pitch clock the other day. She's like, we're sitting there at Truist Park. She's like, what's that thing? I go, well, they used to take all the time that they wanted, and like we're out of there in 2 hours and 45 minutes comfortably. My kids liked it more.
Do you guys use that, JD? Do you guys use a pitch clock?
We do, and it's surreal for me because I throw more pitches now because we're two and a half minutes between half innings, and so to me that's all the time. Like I'm a throw five, I'm ready to go. Mm-hmm. Now I take my time, I throw, and I end up throwing probably 10 pitches. But yeah.
So before I kill them, they've made progress. There's been positive moves.
I just think we're these rules of who's blacked out and who's not are so archaic. They're
That's
I think
the
even
thing.
before we're living in the streaming era. And that's my argument is we're everywhere. We're on our phones. We need to be watching it wherever you're at, neutral sites. And
it reminds me of the newspaper industry in the mid 2000s, where it's they'd always made this money, and really the cable industry too, where it's just been so easy for so long to get these subscriptions with classified ads. The newspaper industry always just had automatic money coming in, and it was they knew that they needed to shift, but are we just going to give up on all this revenue that's guaranteed for us? And that's how cable subscribers were. Well, in doing that, they allowed companies like mine to come up and become competition. And what I've seen with with baseball, by doing this, you may be because the way baseball works, if I'm correct, it's all these regional cable companies, and they're all paying to the teams, and it's always been a cash cow for baseball. And there's been gerrymandering, where I grew up. It was so weird. A town over, the Cardinals were your home market. 10 miles to the left was the Royals. Then if you go up north a little bit, you were a Cubs organization. It was wild. It was weird. Mm-hmm. But what they're doing is, when you have a guy like me, I'm a good example where I genuinely care about two teams. Now, if the Braves and the Royals are playing, I would root for the Braves, but I genuinely care about the Kansas City Royals. Well, I'm not invested in them now, because I cannot watch them. It is impossible for me to watch the Kansas City Royals, where by them keeping some money from their regional TV product or whatever, you're also keeping people like me from taking my family down to Kansas City, and maybe my daughter becomes a Royals fan because she can drive there and it's not 15 hours like it is to go with dad down to Atlanta. Do you see my point? The comparison with the media industry in the mid 2000s?
I get it. And it makes sense to me. It just it is for like Bill. I mean, to be honest, it's a billionaire owner to get more funding through the old system and not willing to adapt. And so I just think that's the big frustration is that gap between where and like you have the owners who have the commissioner's office because the owners pick who the commissioner is. You have the players union looking out for the players, but the fans don't have anything. And I think that's the thing that we're missing because, I mean, we want to go. We go to the games. That's why all this it's funded is because there's revenue going through there and people want to watch it.
I mean, it's just stupid too, Matt. Like you're a bigger baseball fan than me, but if you want to go to a game, you're going to go to the game if you can watch it on TV or not. Like in my opinion, like I'm not going to be like, I'm not going to drive to Kansas City tonight. Like, come on.
Well, dude, so remember the NFL had blackout rules up until like 10 years ago, 2014, I think. You know, if there wasn't like 85% of tickets sold at a stadium, they'd black the game out to people in the market. It was in the market. I don't remember if it was what the rules were for location wise, but yeah, it's like if you want to keep growing your game, like look how much the NFL's taken off in the last 10 years when they got rid of that. All their games are out there. You can watch any single game, every single game.
Especially now that baseball's so much more palatable to watch on TV too.
Right. And it's like baseball. I mean, JD, as much as I hate to say it, it's becoming almost a dying sport in what it used to be at its heyday. You know, it used to be it's America's sport, but it really has seen a decline, and a big part of that is the blackouts.
Right. But I mean, even NFL has huge issues with like, I saw things where if you want to watch one team, you have to buy like 6 different subscriptions and things like that. So there, I mean, there's different levels to this as well. But like when you pay MLB TV, the one thing associated with Major League Baseball, and you cannot watch these games, that's where the biggest issue I have. And that seems like an easy fix.
Yeah, because and I think that the NFL, in my opinion, this will at some point take care of itself. There's going to be some consolidating in media with all this. I don't know how it's going to look, but all you need to know is that Fox and ESPN are teaming up to create like a big sports. Like if those two organizations can get together, that would be like JD and Steve King going out for dinner, right? Like that's. I'm serious. Like those.
Usually I don't say private DMs, but I think you will get a kick out of this. Steve King's son DM'd me and said, "What you're doing with the Explorers is really cool. Congrats."
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Very
cool.
And he even said, like, I know we're different sides of the aisle and all that stuff. I thought that was really cool. So I hope he's not mad that I said
no,
that.
I'm glad you told that because there's just a lot of stories like that they don't ever get told. And
hey, Chris, real quickly, and you kind of speak to the political side of this, JD, but what you're doing in Sioux City for the flood victims, you touched on it a little bit. Obviously, we know what happened up there in the northwest part of our state, but you are trying to balance both of those things. You're trying to balance baseball and helping the constituents in your district. Talk a little bit about what you're doing for your city.
Yeah, so the first week, so July 6th was right when all the floods were already happening in northwest Iowa, and then that trickled down from the Big Sioux to down here in Sioux City. And McCook Lake is in South Dakota, and that's where they had major damage. We did too, but it was concentrated in only a few blocks. But so July 6th, I get the start, and then they're like, "Hey, show up tomorrow." And so I went to the game tomorrow, and they're like, "Hey, we're on the bus tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. to go to Fargo. Are you going to be on the bus?" I'm like, I have to deal with we have a meeting coming up for resources. We have other groups that I'm trying to meet with to make sure the community action agencies have been absolutely wonderful and showed great leadership. And so I just want to make sure that these folks that I represent were taken care of before I went up to Fargo. And luckily the Explorers were cool with it. And then it got out there. I had a local business donate lemonade. So I went out there with lemonade. And then from there, I realized, oh, these people don't know like what to do. Like they don't, a lot of them didn't have flood insurance because they were told not to because there was a levee and all that stuff. So then I immediately got created a walk card with all the resources they have. And then on the backside had the Builders Association had what to look for. So contractors don't, like there's not shady contractors come in and you give them a down payment and you never see them again. So like like all that information on a card, just handed them out. And people were so grateful because like they had a major impact in their life and they just didn't know where to start. And so I just wanted to give them some resources from that. And then from there, the day before my start, there was a meeting in Riverside that was about 5:00 that had all these different resources from all these our emergency groups all came together for this. And it was just like a resource fair. And then after that got going, made sure that was all good. Then I drove up to Fargo. So that's like a little bit of how I've been trying to balance things out.
It's just tragic, everything that happened up there. It's just been really weird, just the weather. And we've had just a bad year in our state.
We go from 5 years of drought to overwhelming water, and it just.
I'm very lucky. I've been dealing with a completely flooded basement since the day of the Greenfield tornado, and I'm blessed. I had flood insurance. I had amazing people, like neighbors, who came over and helped me that day. But it's just my basement. Everything else is fine. Nobody got hurt, and it's been an entire summer of restoration, and those poor people up there who didn't have it. Like, I can't even imagine being in that situation, and you call your insurance, and there's nothing we can do.
Well, and here's the problem that we're seeing across Iowa is because there's these storms that are so big and so different than what we're used to, insurance companies are pulling their homeowner insurance. And so like I know in Marshalltown, because they've had huge tornadoes and different things, that it's hard to find homeowner insurance or really expensive homeowner insurance. And so that's, I think, something in the foreseeable future that we're going to have to deal with these just dramatic weather
It's kind of
events.
dumb too. It's like I mean, I get it. They've had bad weather in Marshalltown, but that could have very easily been Norwalk or
right. It could be anywhere. Right.
But that's it. I get it. That's how they work. And I mean, I was told by somebody in that field, like, everything's going to start going up if it hasn't already. I mean, just for all of us. But Matt, I'm good here. I really appreciate it. JD, I hit you up like 2 years ago. We were going to do something and it never happened. You got busy. You were in the middle of your heated race at that time. But this is, I mean it, like, just not even the sports part of this. I love the story of somebody saying, you know what, screw it. I'm going to take a chance and do something that I love. You just don't hear story. Everybody wants to make the safe move, right? Like, cause that's just what humans are. We want to be comfortable. We want to know what's coming, and you're bad one here, but you're swinging for the fences, right? You're doing the opposite. You're trying to get the strikeout, but it's been fun to watch. Real quick, are you going to play again next year? Like, I know, is this, or we're not going to retire now that we're going like this, right? I mean,
we'll see how I think I got 3 or 4 more starts left. We'll see how that plays out and just kind of go from there. But any day being 44 and I get to be on the mound is a wonderful day. And so I'll try to do this for as long as I can.
Well, if you get in a bind, I'm sure Van Winkle will come up and pitch a few innings for you guys.
That's what I was saying. I was trying to look at the schedule for the Explorers. I'm like, dang, you guys don't play anywhere really close to Des Moines, but maybe Williams, we need to make a trip up to Sioux City before the end of the year.
I'd love to do that, and I'd also hit your owner up, JD. Sounds like an excited guy about all this. I'd love to put an Explorers, like, pennant or something in our studio in the background. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah. Just give me the address. I'll send one to you.
Awesome.
And then I think not this Friday, but the following Friday, I might be starting Friday night in Lincoln. So that might be not too far. So
yeah,
that's not closest. It's probably closer than Sioux City is.
Who's their what's their team name?
The Salt Dogs.
The Salt Dogs. I knew it was something cool. Yeah. I grew up in Clarinda. I'm sure you've heard of the A's.
Absolutely. Ozzie Smith.
Yeah, so it's funny you say him because I have like 10 Ozzie Smith autographed baseballs. They're like a dime a dozen in our town. They had a bus fire like 15 years ago, and Ozzie just bought him a new bus.
I mean, the old bus was his as well, I think.
Yeah.
That was since like he was playing days. So
good book. It's called The Baseball Whisperer, if you like to read about baseball. but it's about that organization. And there was his name's Michael Tackett. He writes for he's like the chief political bureau guy for the Associated Press in Washington. He used to be with the Washington Post, so a big politics guy, JD. And his son played there for a summer. And him and his wife would go from Washington, D.C. to Clarinda, Iowa, like 4 or 5 times that summer. And they fell in love with the place, about how these kids, college kids from all over the country, are living in like the basements of just the townspeople, and they have jobs during the day, and just the whole thing that they've done. It's almost, they're going to go, I mean, they've been around for over 50 years, what they've been doing there now, and the alumni that's come through that place. So I really get what you guys are doing. Now you're at a higher level than that, but it is not luxurious. It is not like, it's a grind, but it means so much to so many people in these towns. So keep it up, man.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Hope you're having fun. Maddie, thank you. Did you get everything you wanted from JD?
This was great, man. And you mentioned just like going out there at his age doing this, but the success he's having too is just so cool, man. And
hey, let's not be bad-mouthing guys in their 40s now, okay?
I'm not bad-mouthing him. I'm just saying it's cool that he's having this type of success too, man. Like, keep killing it out there, and we'll be following you along the way, all right?
I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much.
JD, Scholten, Maddie, we should also tweet out the live link so people can watch JD tonight and show that off on our Iowa Everywhere feeds. All right, fun one today. Signing off here from the Channel Seed Studios, Chris Williams. Thanks to Maddie Van Winkle for joining me today as well. We'll be back next week with more CW Pod, presented as always by our friends over at Steeple Ridge Lonely Oak Distillery. Pick up a bottle of Steeple Ridge Bourbon to support the show today.
And end MLB blackouts.
And end MLB blackouts. Perfectly said.